Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, our group will be discussing about kingdom Animalia, specifically Porifera. There will be 4 parts in this video. Now, let's move on to the first part of this video, which is introduction. And let me give some overview of what is phylum Porifera. So the first one is, what makes sponges different from other animals is that they lack true tissues and organs. Most sponges are marine. Some species live in freshwater lakes and streams. Furthermore, they have bodies full of pores and channels allowing water to circulate through them. Other than that, sponges are sessile aquatic animals. They live permanently attached to an underwater surface such as rock or other submerged objects and remain fixed in place. Many of the small sponges that hide under rocks or live on coral reefs are colored in vivid hues of red, yellow, orange, purple, crimson, sky blue, and also ultramarine.
I will be explaining about the Porifera characteristics, so moving to the next slide. As we know, sponge is an example of Porifera. We know that sponge has a shape like a vase with a center cavity, as we can see from the slide. And we know that they have a countless pores on their body wall. Sponge bodies are also asymmetrical and they lack of tissues and organs as well. We also know that sponge have a flattened cells on the outside and collar cell on the inside, and cells that make up the pores of the sponge is called as porocyte. Other than that, skin on the epidermal and collar cell of the sponge are made up from the epidermal cells. Besides, we know that sponge are aquatic and sessile. Furthermore, spicule is the sponge skeletal fibers. It collaborates with sponge collar cells to digest food and also to create gametes for a sexual reproduction. We also know that sponge do not have a circulatory or a respiratory system, so the energy and oxygen is acquired through simple diffusion over the cell membrane. For the digestion of sponge, amoebocyte will provide sponge-like properties and aid in nutrition transfer, and collar cell will play a role to which they use their breathing flagella to transfer an enormous amount of water through body pores. The sponge will filter feed from this water by trapping food particles with collar cells to collect the nutrients. Besides, sponge have a small calcium carbonate on the body surface to provide support and protection to the sponge. Sponge also reproduce sexually or asexually. Sponge generate eggs and sperm, which are then discharged into the sponge internal chamber, where the zygote develops into a ciliated larva. While the adult is stationary, the larval stage may move around. So this is the diagram of the sponge reproduction. So I will explain it from the first step until the fifth step. So we know that an adult sponge will release the sperm cell, and it will enter another sponge and will fertilize with the egg cell. The larva will develop, and the larva will carry away by the water currents, and the larva will settle on the hard surface and develops into an adult sponge.
The classification of phylum Porifera. So, phylum Porifera are the lowest multicellular animals belonging to the kingdom Animalia. This is because sponge or phylum Porifera are considered to be one of the simplest animals, primarily because their bodies are not organized in organ systems or even a tissue. Rather, sponges are made up of grouping of cells that work together to contribute to meeting the daily needs of the sponge. That is because why this sponge is known as the lowest multicellular animals. Next, phylum Porifera is classified mainly based on skeleton. It can be divided into 3 classes. The first class is the Hexatinellida, or known as class wipe. The second class is the Demospongia, and the third class is the Calcarea or Calcispongia, or known as calcareous wipes. Next, we look into the first class is the Hexatinellida. So the Hexatinellida is the large size sponge on average 10 to 30 cm in height. It lives mainly in the deep waters of sea and can grow in firm and soft sediment. And the deep sea form live at the depth of between 200 meter and 1000 meter. So the wall encloses a spongial atrium which opened by a wide oscillum, commonly called glass sponge because it looks like glass, if you can see the picture there. Next is the Demospongia. Demospongia mostly marine, but a few are freshwater or brackish water forms. Skeleton either absent or siliceous speculus. Fibrous spatula replaced by organic collagenous fibers, spongy fibers or both spongy fibers and siliceous spiculus. So the canal system of leuconid type only. The leuconid type canal system is derived from a lava stage called the Regan type, which does not occur in any adult animal of calcareous sponge. So we look into the third class, which is a calcareous sponge, or known as the calcare or calcispongia. Calcare or calcispongia exclusive marine, shallow coastal water species restricted to depth less than 100 meter and require hard substratum for attachment. If you can see at the picture, it needs a hard substratum for its attachment. It is a small size sponge, about 10 cm in height, and it's a cylindrical or vase-like in shape. This type of sponge, its canal system is as conoid, syconoid, and leuconid type, as the Demospongia, the leuconid type. So, as conoid type of canal system is found only in the class Calcarea. So, this is three mainly class of this phylum Porifera.
To conclude, Porifera can be defined as an asymmetrical or readily symmetrical multicellular organism with a cellular grade of organization lacking well-defined tissues and organs, exclusively aquatic, mostly marine, sedentary, solitary, or conical animals, with a body perforated by pores, canals, and chambers through which water flows, with one or more internal cavities lined with choanocytes, and with a distinctive skeleton made of calcareous spicules. The animals in the phylum Porifera are known as parazoans because they lack genuine tissues, except in class Hexactinellida. These organisms have a basic endoskeleton and a very minimal organization. Sponges have a variety of cells that perform different metabolic processes, and despite their simplicity, these animals perform a variety of complicated physiological duties.